And joining us now on the premier Chevrolet of Carlsbad fan hotline is my friend and just absolute dynamo, Emily Nyman, host of the Breaking Balls podcast. How are you?
I'm great. Even better now that I'm unmuted.
Now, so you live on Long Island. Can you say the name of your podcast for everyone?
It's the Breaking Balls podcast.
Bulls. Yeah, I was waiting. I wanted her to say Breaking Bulls because that's how you do it.
A very authentic Long Island.
Very authentic. Now we have a board up here, Italian Paul, also Long Island guy. Sammy Lev, I believe, who's
from that area.
He's from that area too. There's a lot of Long Island flavor here on 97.3 The Fan, and you certainly bring the flavor every day on Twitter. You are one of my favorite baseball minds in this country. I'm telling you, you're so good at what you do, and it's so good to have you.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to be here. Ever since they signed Manny Machado in 2019, this has been my goal, is to just get my way into San Diego society. So I'm coming up in the world.
You know, it's
funny. Only took a few years, but we got you.
We got you here. It is funny, though, because I'm a reformed Yankee fan. I think you're a current Yankee fan. And he was one of those guys when he played on the Orioles, Manny Machado, he torched the Yankees at every opportunity. I mean, and I thought they were going to back up the Brinks truck for him. I thought I would have bet anything in the world Manny Machado was going to be a New York Yankee. Not like they haven't needed a third baseman for the last, 5 years. Didn't you? I mean, I thought it was just a no-brainer.
Yeah, honestly, I was shocked, and especially because we had the images of he and Yaney, his wife, getting out of the car, going to Yankee Stadium, being courted by them, that it was, I don't want to say surreal because Steinbrenner's Yankees have disappointed me many times.
Sure.
So it wasn't surprising on one hand, but on the other, it was just quintessential Hal, where they get almost to the finish line and then they just have like a deadline where, no, we're not going to go that far. And now in retrospect, is $30 million a year really even that much? Like the price for the top guys in the league continues to rise, fortunately for them. So what the heck, Hal? Like, it's instead I get to watch Josh Donaldson every single day, and it's just
worst.
Brutal.
He's the worst, and Manny is the best. And that's the thing, is like Emily, and she's one of those. It's cool too, because there's something about the Padres, and there's been a few people on the East Coast too that I'm friendly with on Twitter. They're all staying up and watching San Diego Padres baseball, like all the time. You're one of those diehard. Like I work for the flagship, and if it's 9:30, I'm like, I'll go to bed. I'll catch the rest in the morning. Like, you guys are on the East Coast watching these games, and people are invested in this team out here in San Diego. What do you think that connection is?
I just have always had a thing for the big right-handed hitting Dominican third baseman.
Yeah.
A-Rod was my favorite player growing up and through until he retired. And then Manny just sort of stepped right into that role. He just was going to be that big bat. And I don't know, there's just something exciting going on in San Diego. And I even not only watched the games, but when they came to Mets, to Citi Field in 2021, I went to the game and I wore my Manny Machado jersey, and my co-host on my podcast got me a San Diego hat for Christmas that year. And I sat on the third base side. So, I mean, I don't know what the connection is, but it's there and it's strong.
It's funny because, it's wild. I mean, I grew up a Yankee fan because my dad was one, and I watch them now and I feel nothing, literally nothing. I don't like Garrett Cole. I don't like half the guys on the team. And when I was coming up, I loved them. It was mine and my dad's thing. And then when I had boys of my own and living here, now it's pretty embarrassing though, because when I was a kid, the Yankees spent a ton of money and they got the best players. Now look who I'm a fan of. The San Diego Padres, who spend more than the Yankees and still get the best players. And I'm like, all right, maybe this is a me problem, but it's just the way that my life and career has worked out. I feel like we could get Emily to the light. I feel like we could get her to the light, and maybe you'd never renounce them, but I feel like this is definitely your NL squad.
What do you need, Emily? You need a Manny Machado bobblehead?
Yeah, because we've got bobbleheads. We got anything you need.
Well, I already have 2 Manny Machado bobbleheads that were sent to me by my friend Sam, who the Mandalorian one, and then just a random one. Honestly, I don't know. I think I might have to come out to San Diego, maybe be courted a little bit by the city, wined and dined, and we'll think about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's
on Gloria. If you're listening, we'll call it Emily Nyman Day.
Emily Nyman Day here in San Diego. She's the host of the Breaking Balls podcast, and I love how much you love baseball. because I'm the same way. And wanted to get your thoughts on the WBC. I just following along on your Twitter. I'm assuming that you loved it, like most of the country did, other than Met fans. And I think, I'll give them a little bit of a pass. It's a bummer. It's a bummer to watch Edwin Diaz go down, even as a baseball fan. But just kind of your overarching thoughts on the WBC.
I think it was fantastic. I can understand the pool play was fun, but it can be a little slow because
Sure.
there's such a disparity between the bottom teams and the top teams. But the tournament round was electric. I mean, the one and done style tournament, a bracket style, is just an undefeated format. And it was fantastic in this format. And I think that this was the tournament. Because the WBC has been around for I think the first one was in like 2006 or something like that. This was the tournament where it finally arrived because you had Shohei Ohtani. So it really sort of, it globalized, even though it's always been that way. But because we've never had a star quite like him on the other side that came from the other side of the world, that it really brought everything together, and it just cemented how fantastic and how exciting a tournament like this can be, especially because even though I think the Olympics are bringing back baseball for one of the next few Olympics, none of these guys can participate because they're in the middle of the season. So we never get to see them in this capacity and playing for their country and playing with their countrymen who may play in other pro leagues around the world. So it was exciting. And something like that just never happens in March. Spring training is exciting because it's the beginning of the season, but that sort of fizzles out by the first week. And then you're just like, all right, let's get to opening day. This really gave us something to look forward to. And MLB doesn't always get it right, but they certainly did this time around.
Yeah, we're talking to Emily Nyman, host of the Breaking Balls podcast. It's funny because my wife is a huge Padres fan as well, and she screams at me for not watching the Padres spring training games. And she's like, this is your job and you need to be. And I'm like, it's so far removed from the regular season for me. That's why this was so wonderful to have passion and guys playing 100% and playing for country and all that. I loved it. I wish they would do it every year. I understand why they don't. You're going to lose some appeal, but maybe every 2 years or something. It's just it's been so fun to watch. And even on some of those slower beginning of the pool play games, games that are on at 3:00 in the morning and stuff here, it's like, man, this guy's a plumber. And now he's playing for his team. And it's cool to see that baseball is such a truly global game. Wanted to kind of talk to you too about, we're obviously elated here in San Diego. We're a bit nervous for the season to start. What's the mood in New York? You've got Met fans, Yankee fans, always big brother, little brother. We've kind of got that syndrome going on with the Dodgers, who we, same league. So we took them out in the playoffs last year, but that kind of head-to-head rivalry in New York is pretty fun.
Oh, it's the best. And it's gotten even better. Well, significantly better with Steve Cohen purchasing the Mets and so far being, for all intents and purposes, a really great owner, not unlike Peter Seidler in San Diego. And to be honest, I think Yankee fans are a little nervous, especially with the news that came out last week where Hal isn't even paying for the Wi-Fi on their flight.
Right.
Where now that's like, oh my God. I have my cousin who's my co-host on my podcast and a Mets fan. He was busting my chops about it last night. I'm like, come on, man, that's old news. Can we get over that already? But it's been really exciting. And I think that the Mets are the least of Yankee fans' problems right now because the Astros have just been the thorn in their side. And I think that's putting it lightly. So I'm confident in the season. This team, they can win 95 plus games, but that's not enough. Being able to do that isn't enough to get past the Astros. And I'm cautiously optimistic because I'm a fool and it's before opening day. So what kind of baseball fan would I be if I weren't? But I think I'm very nervous, and I know other Yankee fans are as well, to just get past the Astros. Forget about the Mets.
Yeah, 100%. And we asked the question yesterday talking about the Padres of what are the big questions? And I thought about it yesterday a lot. Is there one team out there that you can think of that has the least amount of questions? Because now if you talk about the Astros being the class of the AL, and for many, many years, it was the Dodgers were the class of the NL, couldn't get the job done really in October when it counted, a lot like the Yankees since 2009. But the question marks, I think, they're few. They're few for the Padres. In the AL, who do you look at and say they have the least amount of question marks? Astros lost Altuve. I mean, that's tough to just plug and play somebody in for them. But out of all the teams in the AL, who has the fewest question marks in your opinion?
I even with Altuve's injury, because you can't really plan for that and you can't really replace him, I'd still say the Astros. I mean, the Yankees, their rotation, they shorted up pretty well with Rodon, so that filled in a question for them, because that's really the key in the postseason. And we saw in the World Baseball Classic how the best team on paper doesn't always come out on top. And I'm not saying that Japan wasn't great, but all of those teams were really good. So in a short tournament, when the talent disparity is razor thin, there are a few things that can get you over the hump and maybe give you a slight edge. Pitching is one of them. So I still think that the Astros edge the Yankees out in that respect. But I think that adding Rodon to the rotation made them a little bit more legit on the Yankee side. And I'd still say the Astros, because Altuve's injury obviously is terrible, and you never want to see that even for a rival. But it's a break, which is a clean injury for all intents and purposes, that he's going to be able to heal and come back probably at full strength in about 2 months. So the beginning of the season, it stinks, but it's a very long season for a reason. If it were only 80 games, then I'd say they might be in trouble, but he's going to come back at some point in June. They'll be fine.
Yeah, it's the pitching is where it kind of starts and stops with me. It's our biggest question mark here, even though we're cautiously optimistic about it. I do agree with that sentiment too. Even losing, and that's how good that team's constructed. You lose a guy like Jose Altuve, and you're like, we'll be okay, because we've got the arms, we've got the bullpen. You got Ryan Presley, who's the most underrated closer in baseball. I mean, the guy's like almost automatic, and doesn't get the big headlines. But no, it's going to be a fun season. We'll be checking in with you. Obviously following you on Twitter. Check her out at M Does It, EMSHE Does It. There it is. M She Does It.
You got there.
Yeah, it's close. M She Does It.
Where can we find your podcast, Emily?
That's right.
We're on all platforms: Apple, Google, Spotify. It's just the Breaking Balls podcast with Emily Nyman, and we release one episode per week. And if you enjoyed this segment, you will definitely enjoy that. So you should check it out.
And more cursing on your podcast, though.
Yeah, a little bit more.
You can't do it on the radio, unfortunately, for you and I. We certainly appreciate your time. You are a beast in every way of the most positive sense of that word. You're fearless.
Thank
I
you.
love you on Twitter. Keep up the great work, and we will talk to you very soon.
Thank you.
That's Emily Nyman, everybody.